And we are back with the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And we are at the third segment, so now we're going to do a quick little recap of last night on the NBA basketball. Just talk about the biggest stories from last night's games, some of the best scorers, obviously, like the narratives behind some of these teams, and what to expect going into the future with some of these teams. So let's just rip the Band-Aid off right now and start with my Brooklyn Nets. They ended up losing to Golden State. Our offense was absolutely horrible. And I was just talking crazy about Cam yesterday on the podcast about how good he was over the weekend. Now he decides to put up a 4 for 21 performance with 18 points. I guess that's what I get for being... You can't have anything nice in New York. You just can't. And this is a problem with Cam. He's a great scorer, but can be a bit inconsistent. And since he doesn't really have the defense to back it up, if he's not getting 30 or 40 points, it's not good for his team. Everyone forgot how to shoot in this game. Not just my team, but also Golden State as well. The only player that was able to hit a 3 on Golden State was Stephen Curry. No surprises there. But Bridges went 5 of 15 and only had 13 points. We were building houses out there. It was just a competition to see who can build the most houses. Ben Simmons didn't play this game. I think he was scared of Draymond punching him in the face. But it's all just jokes. But he didn't. He seriously didn't play this game. I don't know why, but he's just going to cause more unnecessary stress to me. And I'm just going to try my best to ignore him, but I really can't. A lot of you might question if he's really injured. He's day-to-day, which essentially just means that he plays when he feels like it. That's what it feels like to me as a fan, but if he actually is injured, I hope he definitely gets better, but it's Ben Simmons. Like, we all know how he is. He just chooses not to play. It's so difficult to watch. It is so infuriating to watch somebody that is 6'10" not want to play. This is like the 9th time on this podcast where I'm begging him to please get off my team, but I digress. Golden State absolutely murdered us on the offensive side of the court. Curry ended with 29. Kuminga ended with 28. Green and Clay ended with 8, but Draymond had 10 rebounds to go with. I talked about Golden State before on my last podcast, mentioning how they need to if they want to win, they should probably get rid of Klay Thompson because he is bringing negative value to the team. And as of right now, I am proving to be right. Steve Kerr benched him late in the fourth. He's usually known for hitting these big shots when you need it, but he sat out in this one. It was really tough for him to watch as well, as he just mentioned towards the media. He shot 4 of 9 from the field, which technically isn't that bad, but he went 0 for 3 from 3 and ended with more shot attempts than points. And as I said before, when you end with more shot attempts than points, you didn't have a good night. And I don't think if you... I will say this constantly, over and over again. If you end the game with more shot attempts than you do points, you didn't have a good night. That's negative production for your team. That's just possessions you are wasting and hurting the team by not knocking down the shot. He sat out in the fourth because of this, they ended up winning the game in the end. Kuminga calling out Steve Kerr is probably one of the best things I've ever seen in my entire life, because Kuminga straight up complained to the media saying, I don't get that many minutes. That's all his fault. More or less, I'm paraphrasing, but he was complaining about not getting enough minutes. And Steve Kerr answered by giving him the minutes. And he is producing so much better now with those minutes than he was without those minutes. And I think it's probably the most badass thing I've seen an NBA player do. But right now, other than Kuminga, Steph is the only real reliable piece on this offense. The Warriors are looking worse than the Brooklyn Nets right now. I can't even lie. They're looking worse than us right now in terms of standings, which is very sad, seeing how they still have Curry playing some of his best basketball. And Golden State should hurry up and trade if they do plan to move on from Clay, and if they do plan to win and salvage the most of what they can from Stephen Curry. In other news, Los Angeles, the Lakers, they finally won it. They won back-to-back. Yay! They did it. And guess what? They did it with LeBron and Anthony Davis. It was an easy win against a bottom feeder for the East. LeBron played 40 minutes again. and he got 26, 7, and 4. Anthony Davis ended with his third career triple-double, going 26, 11, and 15. D'Lo also showed up tonight with 28 points. And in absolutely no surprise to anyone who knows anything about basketball or isn't a casual or isn't a hater, the rest of the Lakers didn't show up. Wow! It's almost like the game against Boston was a fluke. Reeves ended the game going 3 of 9, only getting 9 points. What happened to all the trade talks? What happened to that? It was one good game that the Lakers had and immediately went to trade talks about LeBron. And now LeBron is back and they won 2 straight in a row. It is not his fault. It was not his fault. It's never been his fault. The trade talks need to stop now. The players can't be consistent. Like I mentioned before, when they put LeBron and Anthony Davis in the lineup, they just forgot how to play basketball. They can't be consistent without him. What makes you think that they'll be consistent without him? There's no proof that we have of that. Just one game against Boston Celtics? No. This would never happen. The trade talks would have never happened if they didn't blow out the Boston Celtics at home. And it doesn't matter how bad the Charlotte Hornets are, all the more reason for the players on this team to step up. But no, it was LeBron and AD. Let's let LeBron and AD do everything like we let them do every single game. It is infuriating. But I digress. Darvin Ham finally listened to me, or the media. I don't know who he listened to, but he put Roy in the starting lineup, and he didn't play that crazy. He only went 4 of 6, but that was definitely better production than what they were getting from their last starters. And so far, he's been great. The consistency from him has been phenomenal. These Lakers need to get better at shooting threes, however. They only made 8 of them tonight, and that will hurt them come playoff time. Brandon Miller ended with 33 points, and somebody else on the Charlotte Hornets also ended with 41. I absolutely refuse to say his full name given to his history with his ex-wife. I will not mention his name whatsoever, and in fact, I'm going to stop talking about him right now. 2 people on the Charlotte Hornets, Brandon Miller and the other guy, had over half of the shot attempts from the team. Now, the Lakers, when they have Bron and Anthony Davis, they don't even do that. The Lakers, now this is obviously a problem for Charlotte, given how bad they are as a team and how below average they are as a team. They really don't have much working for them. They're fighting for a draft pick. That's essentially what it is, as sad to say. But the Lakers getting ready to play the Nuggets, so depending on how that game goes will depend on how my opinion for this team changes. But you guys know what I think about Los Angeles. They'll either barely make the play-in or miss the play-in in the end, wasting another year of LeBron in his prime. This lineup needs to do a trade, and they need to do it now. In recent news, the Mavs beat the Sixers 118-102. I mentioned previously in the last segment, we updated you guys on Joel Embiid and his injury. He will be out a minimum of 4 weeks at least. I believe it's going to be longer. I predict it's going to be a little bit longer than just 4 weeks. But right now, the Sixers aren't really in a good spot. Kyrie remembered that he was a basketball player and finally decided to play a game against Philly. He was injured, so that's just a little joke. But he led the team in scoring with 23 points. Luka wasn't that efficient from the field tonight, only getting 19, going 6 of 15. But it was enough to win the game in the end and to win the game in a blowout. I may have given the players a bit too much credit for their close games. I may have given the Sixers a little bit too much credit for their close games that they've had against some of the good teams. So far, Oubre hasn't been doing well producing, and neither has Tyrese Maxey. In fact, Maxey ended with 15 points on 6 for 16. That's just not ideal if you are the Sixers. Now that he's going to be the number 1 option for at least 4 weeks, he has to look to be more aggressive and to be more consistent if the Sixers want to keep their playoff hopes alive, and when or if Embiid comes back. And just a little bit more on that. I personally don't think that the Sixers should even bother trying to bring Embiid back. I feel like the Sixers should try and just, hold him out until next season. and just wait until next season. Like, next year should be the year that they're competing. With how top-heavy this Eastern Conference is, I don't think now is a good time to just force Embiid to recover quickly from that meniscus injury. He's always injured in the playoffs. So what's the point in trying to bring him back from an injury if he's most likely going to get injured again in the postseason? Like, I think they should just wait. Like, just a little bit. Just wait until next season. Like, I understand you want to win now. You've been disappointed several years before, and you want to win now. But now is not going to be the time, given how top-heavy this Eastern Conference is. Now is definitely not the time whatsoever. And unless this team figures it out. But they as of right now, it doesn't look like these guys are going to figure it out in terms of chemistry and in terms of production. In other news, a team that has figured it out, though, the Cleveland Cavaliers. A big win last night from Cleveland. They blew out the Sacramento Kings. Donovan Mitchell had 28 points. Mobley had 11 and 14. Strus had 22. Jared Allen ended with 19, and all the starters were in double figures. Garland only took 7 shots this game, but he made them count, making 4 of them and getting 11 points. Garland is still working his way through injury, so it'll take time for him to get back to his usual production. With this win, however, the Cavs moved to the 2nd seed in the East. Now it's time for the Bucks to hit that panic button, because now the Bucks just lost their 2nd seed spot. The Cavs have won 14 out of the last 15 games and are looking absolutely unstoppable. These Kings aren't a joke either. Sabonis is 7th in the MVP ladder, even though he didn't get selected to be in the All-Star game for whatever reason, and ended the game with 12, 15, and 19, which is ridiculous. This is what Ben Simmons should be doing on the team, but no, God forbid. But I digress. The Kings are 5th in the West, and at the moment, I think they will stay there. They are a good team that lacks a lot of playoff experience. So they have experience, but not a lot. So the Cavs being able to beat them definitely puts them in talks as being one of the teams we should be worried about making noise in the postseason. And another team that we should also be worried about making noise is the Clippers. And the Clippers continue to win. They beat the Hawks 149 to 144. I know that is a lot of scoring and a little of defense from both sides, which I'm very surprised. I figured the Clippers side of the ball would be much more strong on the defensive side, but it doesn't matter. A win is a win is a win. Sorry, I needed a breath. Pardon me. But Harden ended the game with 30 and 10. Kawhi ended with 36. And Paul George ended with 18. The entire starting lineup combined for 110 points, which is amazing. Young dropped 25 and 12, once again showing why he deserves to be an All-Star. DeJounte Murray ended the game with 21 points. And DeAndre Hunter ended the game with 27 points, only missing 2 shots. Obviously, this Hawks team isn't necessarily going to be going deep into the playoffs. They are a play-in team. But with the roster that they have, I'm not entirely sure if they will make that much noise in the playoffs. They just don't have enough pieces to make a big run like in 2021. I think trading DeJounte is going to be their best bet in terms of acquiring pieces to see what other players they can bring in now that DeJounte Murray has the value and they can build through the draft. But as of right now, it's looking really rough for the Hawks. The Clippers, on the other hand, are looking like the best team in the NBA right now. Given that they rank number 1 in power rankings, I guess that's a bit obvious, but what do I always say about this team? I need to see it come playoffs. I'm not going to put them as favorites whatsoever until I see some notable improvement in the playoffs. I'm not entirely sure if their defense is as efficient as it was before, at least between Paul George and Kawhi, given how they put all of their energy on offense. Makes sense that the defense from both of them might be a little bit weaker, but I need to see this kind of performance in the playoffs before I make any kind of judgment. And just to elaborate, I mean past the second round. They can't go another year falling short of expectations. They just can't. Because then I will legitimately believe that franchise is just cursed, because there's no other explanation around it. I'm incredibly superstitious, and similar to how I believe that the Jets will never have a good quarterback, It's similar to how I think that the Clippers are going to end up falling short every single time. And there's history to back this up. So it's not like I'm just pulling this out of the air. And I really don't like constantly saying this, but I've seen too much basketball and too much to deny this. Like, I've seen way too much, and I've seen too much football to deny that the Jets just never have a good quarterback. Because there are just so many times where there's literally no explanation for the team losing a playoff series other than the fact that they're cursed. There's, like, no other explanation. Like, in the bubble when Kawhi and Paul George turned the series into a 3-1 series lead and then ended up losing that series. It was just proof. Like, what can go wrong will go wrong with that team. That's sort of the takeaways that I've gotten from that. And we're running out of time, so I'm just going to briefly skim over this next game where the Pelicans beat the Raptors. Not really much to say about the story. It's a great team going against a mediocre team in the Raptors. Brandon Ingram ended with 41, CJ ended with 20, Zion ended with 16. The game was never really close, and to start the game and to end the game. The Pelicans are going to be a playoff team, obviously, so going to have to see like how this season is going to progress going later into the season, see how they perform, and like we haven't really seen them all together in the postseason yet in terms of like in a deep postseason run together. That's what I mean. We haven't seen them in a deep postseason run. So I'm not entirely sure if they'll make it out of the first round this year, given how top heavy this given how much competition there is in this Western Conference. So with that in mind, I'm not necessarily sure what the ceiling is for this team. And obviously, I know the ceiling for the Toronto Raptors. They aren't going to go anywhere in the East. And they should just spend this year to rebuild. They have Scotty Barnes, which is a great asset, so they should rebuild around him and hopefully bring in more pieces to help him and his chances in winning the title. So with that, we are out of time for this third segment. So tune into this fourth segment where I talk about Doc Rivers and the coaching experiment that he always brings. So I'm just going to give a brief rundown of Doc Rivers and his coaching history simply because of a quote that he mentioned. I will mention the quote in the fourth segment, but I will be right back after this short break.